Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars, and carrying on with the M-07 build. Really enjoying this, and it is very different to a lot of Tamiyas that I built. But we've got us front and rear suspension all done now, motors in, so we must be getting pretty close to the end of the build. But let's bring you in for a close-up look, carry on building it, and see how it ends up. Right, so for this part we're going to want to centre a servo and everything, so I'm going to be using the FlySky Noble Pro. So we'll come down to an empty model memory. Going to jump into this one. Channel number definitions, we're going to have it on 4. Radio frequency setup, we're going to want AFDH3 two-way. So we're going to come down onto here. Then I'm going to want to make sure that this receiver is updated. So for these ones, we just connect the bind plug in on the update position, and then just supply a bit of power to the receiver, and you still start flashing. Then we can just go all the way to the bottom, update receiver, FGR4S, and then update. And this just makes sure we got the latest firmware to match its transmitter on his receiver. Once that's done, we can back out. Then you want to take the power off, connect your bind plug, connect your power back to your receiver, tell it to bind, so it's a classic, then start bind.
Binding successful.
Once we've got that bound, we can just remove the bind plug altogether, power your receiver
Signal
off,
lost.
then you want to plug your servo into channel 1,
Signal lost.
then just supply some power back to it. Then we should have a servo, which we're going to be using one of the 25 kg high voltage servos. So we want to make sure that this is centered. You want to make sure all your endpoints are zeroed. Make sure all your sub trims are zeroed. So we know that this servo is now completely centered. Then we can just power off, and then we're done for this bit. Your servo's centered, so let's move on to the next part. Right, so you need to pay attention to the way round it's telling us to put this servo setup together. So you want your servo in that orientation. Then we're going to need all the servo parts. So the first thing you're going to need to find is one of these that fits your actual servo. So we want that on first. Then it's telling you to use 2 of the MD10 rings. So you want to drop these on, and these just sort of one stretches over the other. And you just need to make sure that these are lined up so they can drop in, and you're just sort of trying to get them centralized on the servo saver. And then finally you want the black one on the outer of the servo saver. Then you're going to use the bigger of these two, and that just slots into place on top of your servo saver. Then we're going to get this ring. So this is the Q4 part. That goes in the top. And I believe on this servo it will be an MD2 screw that will fit. So we've just got to position this. And we need to get this screwed in. So once you've got that into place, lastly you'll need an MA1 screw and one of these little MB6 olives, and it's telling us to go for the central position. So you just want the screw going in from the rear, and then we just need to screw this down into place and then tighten it up. So then you should have your servo saver all fully assembled. Right, let's see what else we need. Right, so first thing we're going to need to do is get one of these lovely tie bars made up. So basically we're just screwing this in and you're screwing it down to 90mm in length. So I'll quickly get this one set up, but basically you want both ends facing down and the gap between the inner of these ends wants to be 90mm. Right, so moving on, it's telling us that basically you're going to want to put the ESC on this side, the receiver on this side. So I think it's probably going to be better to feed the servo cable out through the bottom on that side. It doesn't actually tell you which way around to feed this wire, and there's really not a lot of room in here. So once we've got the servo wire passed through, we're going to need to get a few sets of these in place. So we're going to want a washer and a screw on either side. And I don't think there's going to be any easy way of doing this. It's just going to be awkward because you've got to get the servo wire in place as well. The rear ones shouldn't be too bad. Just wondering if the holes were big enough on the servo to drop them through, but it doesn't look like they're going to be on ours. So I would position those on first, although it barely looks like there's enough thread on those, but they're the longest screws that we've got. So you're then going to have to try and get your servo down into position. Then we're going to want to get the rear ones in place. And then again, you're going to want another screw and another washer working its way down through each one of those holes on the rear. And then if all goes well, we should have this lined up enough to screw in. So I'm just going to start by getting two of the front ones into position. And once we've got them started on the threads, you can get the rear into position, and then we just need to tighten these down. And there's not an awful lot of stress on these or on the actual servo at this point, so it's more that it's just holding the servo in position. And if we look from the bottom, I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, so if we look from the bottom you can see where I've passed the servo wire to get it out of the chassis. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pop the servo arm into place. So all that's working. Right, let's see what else we've got. So at this point we've got a bunch of optional parts we can fit. So you have this tray that you can fit in there. I'm not sure whether this is meant for receivers or transponders, but you basically got these little plastic parts that you can put in. You've got two little spacers as well in case you need it lifted to get over the steering arm. So I think if you just put them in, it's possibly going to catch. Yeah. So I'm guessing they give you the little spacers just to lift it up. Now for me, I don't think I'm going to need this fitted yet, but you've also got a little attachment that you can screw to the side, and that lets you mount the switch, so you've got the holes that you can cut out. But again, not entirely sure if we're going to need any of that. So moving along, it's asking us to mount the receiver. So I think for me, I'm possibly just going to mount the receiver down there. So that's not going to take much room up, and it's going to be nice and tidy. And then for the ESC, because we're only running 27 turn motor, I'll be putting this receiver in. I'm going to try and run the wire underneath for the receiver, and then let's have a look how this is going to fit. I think, to be honest, I'd probably be tempted to mount this on its side. So if you mount it on there, you've got your battery wires nice and tidy, you've got your motor wires which can go nice and tidy, and then your receiver wire can just work its way down and through the gap at the bottom. So we'll get them stuck in, and I'll show you how it looks. Right, so that's where I've decided to go. We've got the receiver really tidy down in the side. See if we can get it focused on that. So it's that arm's way, and it's easy to get to the ports if we need to plug anything else in. I've took the ESC wires and servo wires straight under the bottom. We've got the ESC fastened in sideways up here, so we can get to the little dip switches if we need to. And I'm going to be quite happy leaving the on-off switch fastened to the side of the ESC, so we don't need the extra drawer in. And the only thing that I may fasten into this would be a transponder, and there's plenty of room in the middle to drop the transponder in. I've decided to leave these sticking out so I can change motor if I want, and just tie wrapped it just behind them and fasten the battery cable in, which I'm hoping is going to work all right there. So let's carry on and see what else we've got. So moving along, not sure what tyres or wheels we're going on with this yet, depends on what track we're going to be running it on, but it's the point where we're putting on the hexers, and I don't like running the plastic hexers, so I've got a set of these really nice aluminium ones, and these have just got little screws just to hold them in place a little bit nicer. So you basically just stick your screw in, and then you can tighten these up. These also come with a set of drive pins, but I'm going to use the Tamiya drive pins, but I will pop a little link in the description, as I believe these hexers, they just work better than the plastic ones. Usually if you see a wheel fly off on a track, they've usually got either the locking nut type like this or the nuts with the serrated edges, but it's usually down to the plastic hex shearing off and letting the axle spin, and it just unscrews the wheel. But next thing we're going to need to be doing on this is popping out these 4 little clips that it told us to put in to hold the spacers and everything. So we're going to want to drop them out. Then we're going to need 4 of us Tamiya drive pins. So for these, you're just going to pop a drive pin on, then we're going to want to drop one of the hexers on, and then you're going to want to tighten the screw up, and we're going to do this for all 4 corners, and then we're just going to tighten up our locking screws on the hexers. So just need to nip these up to hold them into place, and these do fit really well. Right, so we've got all these tightened up, and as you see, it just makes it easier to work on your RC. When you're picking it up, you're not losing hexers and drive pins when you're at the track or out on a field. And then last thing we need to do for this step is just get us wheel nuts on. Now for these, I'm just going to spin them on, just leave them loose, because these wheels aren't stopping on it, and because I've got the hexers that fasten down, I'm not worried about the wheels falling off and there's pins going missing. But they are really nice wheel nuts, these. Got to give it to Tamiya for this one. Very nice anodized blue wheel nuts. Look really nice on this kit. But just gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. So I'll get the rest of the wheels on and then we'll move on. Right, so we're now moving on to the front bumper. So this one just drops into place. Then we've got part B2, I believe this one is. So you just need to position that on. And then we got 2 of the countersunk screws. So they just need screwing in like that. So that's that in position. We just need to screw those down. So I'll get that done and have a look what else we've got. Right, so moving on, we're getting the battery mount into place. So for these, we're going to want to put 2 of these parts. So the A2 parts. And you're going to want a MA1 screw in each side of this. And this is going to be exactly the same process for each side. And if I remember back to the original M chassis days, you could get a really nice stainless steel and carbon fibre battery release for one side. I can remember fitting that to a Mini Cooper, what I had. But it does look like this is going to be more than sufficient to hold the batteries in. And it looks like the design of this chassis, it's completely symmetrical, as in battery fastens in. So I shall get the opposite side screwed in and then see what else we've got. So for fitting the battery, you can use your 4 little clips that you took out of the wheels. And basically we just drop this on and then drop the pins through. Then we should just be able to slide his battery in, and these are the 4200 milliamp hour Z's. So again, like most of the Tamiya chassis, these Z packs fit absolutely perfect. I'm guessing the Gens Ace ones, for some reason, Gens are obsessed with putting their battery cables offset, and it causes an issue on most of the Basher cars. It causes an issue on the Tamiya cars. So although their battery packs physically fit, for some reason Gens is obsessed with putting the cables off to one side. So usually when I'm running these, I tend to put a twist in the power cable and pop the balance lead through it, and it just tends to keep the balance lead from dragging along on the floor. So we should be able to power up now.
Welcome to Noble.
So we're definitely going to have to reverse the steering. So just go into steering and then reverse. Full travel on these servos seems to be absolutely perfect for a lot of cars. So we're not even going to have to set the endpoints on that. It's literally lock to lock, perfectly centered. So let's see if we've got his motor wires the right way. Yep, we've got his motor wires right. And that is a very smooth sounding transmission. But let's carry on. First thing it's telling us to do is basically one hole up from the bottom of the body post mount on the rear. It's asking us to place a pin. Then it's telling us we want that part slid on. So once we've got that in place, it's then telling you to put a rubber O-ring over each one of these. Looking at the instructions, it is a little confusing as to which hole it's actually telling us. It might be leave 2 at the bottom. So I'll try it like that. Then you're going to fit these bits on with the extra webbing towards the top. Yeah, if we slide that on, it looks like it wants you to leave 2 full holes at the bottom. Then finally, you need an MA1 screw on either side, and these are just going to screw into this position. And because the back of a lot of the body shells for these are going to be more like a hatchback or quite high, this is just going to help sort of prevent the towers wobbling around so much. But that looks to be about it, from what I can tell. Now, for whatever reason, we have got a whole bunch of screws left, and a hell of a lot of body clips. So you're going to need 1 clip for the bottom, 1 for the top, so that's 8 of them used up. You do get a bunch of Allen keys with it, so you can adjust your suspension, the droop screws on the bottom, once you've got your wheels and tyres on. And by the looks of it, we have 4 of these little tiny grub screws left, and I think they are for the sway bars. So I would either fit them to the RC in the holes for the sway bars, or put them all in a bag together so you know where they are if you ever want to fit the sway bar kit. So gearing wise on this is going to be slightly different, because the gearing of the diff is slightly different, with it being the racing diff. But yeah, quite a nice build, and all that's left to do now is choose my wheels and tyres, get it run and see what pinion we want to go with, and get a body shell set up for it. So let's wrap this one up. So there we have it, the M-07 Concept. Just needs wheels, tyres and a body shell on it, but the build is now finished. The electrics are all in. The 9i mod servo works absolutely fantastic. The steering geometry looks like it's set perfect. It's very nice that you get all the bearings. We've got the droop to set on it when we get his proper tyres on. But yeah, other than that, that is a really impressive little car, and not one of the most expensive. Certainly, I would expect this to give you a better sort of experience of racing if you're wanting to get into the Tamiya racing. But we'll have to see once we get it on track, see how good it is. But thanks again for watching Wtf Rc Cars. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, share to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.